October 29th, 2024. The time is 4:31, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the meeting today, to the meeting of the Uplift Education Board of Trustees. Welcome, everyone. To ensure we have the present quorum, I will introduce Dr. Leon Melville, John McPherson,
Present.
John Becker,
Present.
Simon Chen, Pilar Davies, Ricky Garcia,
Here.
Rusty Jaggers, Cameron Johnson,
Present.
Harold Montgomery,
Present.
James Statton, Tracy Seiler Jones, Christine Benjamin. Awesome. Thank you. Our first item of business is a community forum. Alex, did we have anybody today?
No, ma'am, we do not.
Okay. Thank you. Our next item of business is the primary learning acceleration update. And for that, we are going to hand this over to Priscilla.
Hi everyone, I'm Priscilla Collins-Carnes, and this is my partner, Jonathan Dent, and we're going to talk about the primary acceleration and what's going on with that. We're really excited about some of the work that we've been doing, so we're happy to share it with you. We want to start with just giving you an overview about what is the primary acceleration program and how did it come to be. So we have some end of the year goals that we'd like to start with. So 40% of our scholars that are in the 10 lowest performing schools, we're expecting them to make meets on their math, and 50% on their reading or literacy, which includes reading and writing. And that's when we're looking at end of the year data for STAR. We're also focused on third grade this year, and we're looking at our 10 lowest performing schools, and we'll talk a little bit more about why we chose these schools and the impact that it's having on our network as a whole. And so with third grade this year, the next year, our hope is we have less schools, and then we move to fourth grade, and then we have even less schools the third year, and then we move to fifth grade. And that's how we're progressing. It's a 3-year grant from the Charter School Growth Fund, and it was to create a program to bring along a team to help support these schools. So the team includes myself. It includes 4 CIS or curriculum specialists, 2 for reading, 2 for math, that go out into the schools and help support teachers and leaders on the ground. And they also do training, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And it also includes a director of tutoring, which she trains our tutors and makes sure that they're in classrooms and pulling kids and supporting in that way. It also includes bringing in teachers once a month, where they get training specifically in reading and training specifically in math. And it's an all-day training. In fact, we had a training today, and it was really great to see how the teachers are learning. And then I also meet with the academic directors every other week. So one week we're really thinking about data and how we're moving data and which kids still need our attention. And then the other week we're really focused on more curriculum, making sure that directors understand that the curriculum that teachers are using and what they should be looking for when they're going into classrooms to give feedback. And then we're in schools every day. So my calendar is probably 60% in schools, and the teachers are starting to get used to me, because at first it was like, oh my God, she's back again. Yes, it's my whole job. You will see a lot of me. And also my team, they're in schools every day, coaching teachers, going into planning meetings, really sitting through, walking with directors, all of us giving in the moment feedback. So sometimes it's pretty interesting to watch that I'm coaching the director to coach the dean to coach the teacher, and we're all in the room at the same time, listening and hearing the same things, and then looking at the lesson. I think one of our biggest learnings so far was making sure that before we walk in the campuses, that we know what the lessons are, and we review those lessons really well. So by the time I get to the 10th school, I know the literacy lesson probably better than any of the teachers teaching it, because I've seen it so many times in practice.
So as Priscilla was talking about, just want to review a little bit of where we are in terms of, we just finished the first quarter with the program. And so, as Priscilla said, we're focused on the third grade in the 10 lowest performing schools. And we did that strategically because the primary division represents more than half of our kiddos. And so with our 10 lowest performing schools, just the impact that it has for overall accountability, and just to prepare kids for the rigors of our middle schools and high schools, it was just very important to ensure that we were giving all that we could and investing our resources in partnership with Charter School Growth Fund in those 10 lowest performing schools, specifically the third grade, because that's the first year they take the state test. And so it just has a dramatic impact. And as you can see, I'm sure for those of you who've been around a while, a lot of the statistics that compare us or any of the school districts really focus on third grade. And so just want to make sure that we're providing, again, more support and opportunity with really intensive care to those schools and folks. And so Priscilla and her team, in conjunction with my team, really focus a lot on teacher instructional training. Like Priscilla said, they're focused on the coaching. But every school has at least two dedicated tutors that are pulling kids out continually throughout the day, just to ensure that we're filling any gaps and just to make up any kind of lost progress or get them already ahead. And so again, all of this cycles together to ensure that we are just, again, providing what we can. And so at the end of last year, our AL schools, or accelerated learning schools, in third grade performed significantly below our network and below our non-academic or accelerated learning schools in both ELA and math. So far, in quarter one, where we just had our big assessment, we see that now our AL schools are only 4% behind the network. And so we've made up some ground, and they're 10% below the non-accelerated learning Uplift schools in mathematics, which is where we've struggled for the past several years, where most of the country has struggled. And we still see some ELA gaps, and I'm going to run through the data in just a little bit too. But good news is that all of our primary schools are already performing how we did last year in math by 6% on this first assessment compared to the end of the year STAR. And in ELA, we're only about 4% behind where we were at the end of the year last year, starting out this year. So we have some good momentum starting us off, but just want to make sure that we continue to push so that we can sustain and grow this year.
So some of the things that have really been working, one is the monthly training with the teachers and having them being able to sit in the room with each other. What we're finding is they're learning a lot from each other, especially as we're talking about, hey, we're seeing this work at one school, why is it not working at the other school? What are you doing differently? And being able to connect with their peers, we found that that was one thing that we were lacking, is giving them time to really sit down and talk through their lessons with their peers, along with us in the room to help support that. The underground coaching has been a game changer. Just having someone in the classroom while you're teaching to say, oh, why don't you try doing it this way? And we have all kind of signals and ways to do it because different teachers like to be coached different, different ways. Some of them want us to whisper. Some of them would like for me or one of my team to say, oh, Miss So-and-so, have you thought about doing blah, 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 and then go model for them how to do it. So it's been working really well. Once we got past the initial, oh, someone's really going to come in my classroom and help me with the teaching. The in-the-moment coaching, I think, is where we've gotten our biggest bang for our buck. And we kind of stole that from sports. When you watch sports teams on the field and how they coach constantly there, once they're in the game, they have to perform, but while they're at practice, they get that coaching right then and there. They don't write it down and come back the next day and say, here's what you should have done. So we patterned that, our coaching off of that, based on here's what we're seeing, here's what we saw in the data. Based on this data for these specific children, here's what the teacher probably needs to learn and do better in this moment. We're also having the monthly trainings with the leaders. And with the leaders, we've been doing these on campuses lately, so they've been able to get up and go in classrooms and practice. And so we warn the teachers before that they're coming, and they're here to practice, they're not here to critique. And so that's been really wonderful for the leaders to have that practice along with our coaches and with myself. The big part of this is the managing directors, because the good news is my team and I, we're coaches, we're not managers. And having the managing directors who are the managers partner with us and come to the trainings with us and do some walkthroughs with us has been a game changer, because now it has everybody on the same page. And doing that along with Jonathan's team. So sometimes it's like one of the deans called us the Avengers, walking through the campus, because we come as a whole group and then we split up and then we get back together and we have the opportunity to talk about what we're seeing right there in the moment. And then on the last thing is just the coaching for all of us, and then the alignment between Jonathan and I. We've always been great partners. Last year we were great partners when he was in secondary and I was in primary. This year we've become very tight. One, we share an office, so we spend a lot of time together, and we've walked a lot of schools together, seeing the same things, making sure we're speaking in one voice. And that's what's been the most important part. Because what we've learned about our teachers, that we have to be on the same page, saying the same thing, running in the same direction. Because if they hear something slightly different from one of us, they take that and run with it. So it's been nice to have a true partner in the work. And yeah. You're welcome.
So just wanted to share with you, again, our beginning of the year data. And so this covers everything they learned in the first 8 weeks of school, but it is presented in a way that matches and mirrors what they will see at the end of the year. So, so they know what to expect. And so at the very bottom there, I just added our state assessment scores from last year, where we ended up as a network. And then the top three, the first line is the Uplift average across. And then the non-accelerated learning schools, so the other 9 campuses who are not the 10 lowest performing, that is what their average scores were. And then the average score for the accelerated learning schools. So again, overall, we're making a lot of progress in math, which is great, and something we haven't seen in a little while. Still want to keep our foot on the gas, because 8 weeks of content versus at the end of the year when they have a full year of content and they have to go back to what did they learn at the beginning of the year, what were those skills. We want to make sure our kids are very nimble, so they can do that. For English language arts, we are performing lower than we did as a network in our AL schools than the end of last year. And we just want to be mindful of that. To give a little context, one, this is the first time in English language arts the kids took a test on a computer. And so in math, they've been doing it all year long. It's just the practice that they've done. In fact, they did that last year in 2nd grade. And so it's the first time taking the test on the computer. We have a brand new curriculum that our teachers are rolling out and getting used to. Also, from K to 2nd grade, most of the things are read aloud to kids, including tests. It's just a part of the development cycle. And so in 3rd grade, it's really independence. And so this was a lot of hits for our for our 3rd graders coming off the first. But we still have a lot of data that we can look at. In fact, we pull groups of people together to look at the tests and see what are kids doing, where are the skills, where are their strengths, and just how can we improve for next time. So we're not necessarily worried, because a lot of those reading skills, they just spiral back again and again, because it's all about comprehension and being able to decode, and so we're working on that. Lastly, I just want to say that every day is a learning process, and so we are making constant adjustments to our plan. I shouldn't say constant. We are making thoughtful adjustments to our plan. just to see what is working well and where do we need to kind of pivot. As Priscilla alluded to, she and I have been very much aligned on the same page, but as you can imagine, it sounds like there's a lot of hands in the pot when it comes to supporting our schools. And so we really want to be very intentional about how do we bring everybody else in, other than the managers and Priscilla and myself, but really the people who are on the ground. And so we started that last week. I held a session right here in this room. We brought in all of Priscilla's down team, all of my down team, most of Stephanie's down team, all of the people who are in the schools daily. And we actually went through all of the work from the assessments. We started to look at trends, and we really walked away saying, okay, here's the 2 areas that we are all going to focus on when we are in these schools, in these third grade classrooms, from our own particular lens, so that, as Priscilla said, like, we're all in alignment around what our collective next steps need to be, because sometimes that can get lost through managers and different guidelines. And so we will continue to create opportunities like that, just for that alignment on the support side of it. We have a lot of alignment with the teachers and the leaders at the school, but we hadn't thought about that at the beginning from kind of our teams here. We're really finding gaps in both teacher and school leader knowledge and content. Priscilla spoke around a lot of the trainings are really kind of allowing leaders and teachers to dig in and kind of understand. And while it may sound like third grade math should be easy, in some respects we can all do the math. It's just how do we teach the math to somebody who doesn't understand it very well, and in the way that we ask them, which is very conceptual. And so really giving an opportunity to like dive in further, create learners within our leaders and teachers so they feel more confident, so they can respond to kids much better if they know the content in and out. Also, Priscilla and I discovered that we want to ensure that we're aligning our tutoring materials and structures to really support what's happening in the classroom. Again, it's that alignment piece. We have tutors on the ground, but we want to make sure that they know exactly what's happening in the classroom, because they're just pulling kids out. And so we've created some structures, and she has her director of tutoring that are working with my team to really ensure that, one, we're training the tutors really well, so they understand what's happening and they can stay on the same page. More structures for monitoring small group instruction. It's one of the most powerful tools that we have in a teacher's toolbox, is to really pull out a small group of kids that either we need to keep pushing or really think about how we can remediate. And so we realize there's just not a lot of resources and structure around what that should look like at a high level outside of the tutoring. And so what can teachers do in their classroom? That's just not, let me try what I did the first time, when it may not have worked so well for some kids. And so really giving them the support that they may need. And lastly, we've noticed that with our new curriculum and with the struggles that they had on ELA on the first test, it's like, where are the kids' opportunities to really read independently, to build that muscle and to build that stamina on texts that are accessible to them. And so we're really thinking about how we can adjust the instructional block in the day to build in more time for kids to fall in love with books, by reading books that aren't just what comes out of their ELA class. We do ask it of like families at home when they're doing homework, and that's one of the best ways that families can support at home. We always also need to build in that time for practice during the day. So are there any questions for Priscilla or I on state of primary learning acceleration?
I just wanted to mention, first of all, thank you for incredible hands-on hard work, and that we get to see some results early on. Jonathan is the deputy chief of our primary schools, so I like you doing that. And Priscilla is our deputy chief of accelerated learning. So thank you so much.
Good.
Great.
I do want to ask, what's the average tenure of the teachers in the classrooms that you're addressing?
In third grade, it varies school by school. In these schools, I think when we went around in my team, the average was like 3 years, give or take, for most of the schools.
We worked very hard with the leaders at the end of last year to ensure that they were placing as much as possible their highest quality talent in these areas. And you can see that when they played out in the first round of assessments, just some of our more tenured and experienced teachers obviously their kids perform better. And so stuff happens, and that's not always the case, but we want to ensure that we're putting, without sacrificing across the other 5 grade levels, putting some strong resources in third grade.
And we were very pleased that we started with 100% of the third grade vacancies filled this year. So the directors really went over and beyond to make sure we started school with teachers in every third grade classroom.
I want to thank both Jonathan and Priscilla for their hard work. Like, they got this up and running very quickly. We didn't get like break funds to like summer, midsummer, July, and just to be able to turn it around pretty quickly in this impact, and it's become like a core part of our practice.
Thank you.
Great, then I'll keep us going if that's okay. And we had an exciting week last week as we continue to expand offerings on behalf of the kids that we serve. So as you may know, but I'll remind everyone of the why again. We announced we were launching 3 to 4 tackle football teams for our 7 Dallas Uplift schools. Those start our next school year. We are using the addition of tackle football and expanded programming to deepen school spirit and connection and pride, to enhance our scholars' just overall experience at our schools, to complement the strong academic work happening there, and to increase our scholar retention, specifically from 8th grade and 9th grade through graduation. You all might remember that Audrey Fuller was one of your panelists at the retreat, and from Uplift Hampton High School, she's our Uplift Hampton Secondary Head of Schools. She has the second highest college readiness rates on the ACT in the network, but the smallest high school in the network. And we want that high school to serve a lot more children and give them a lot more opportunity. And so that is why we picked our Southern Dallas Uplift schools to launch tackle football. Just really cannot emphasize enough the generosity of individuals in this room and out in our community who very much believe and are excited about Uplift creating a proof point that in Southern Dallas Uplift we can have an and where children can go to a high school that is both competitively strong, academically and athletically, and that they deserve to have an event experience. So we announced last week across all stakeholder groups, our scholars, our staff, and our families, that in the fall, Uplift Hampton will have a middle school and a high school team, and Uplift Wisdom will have a middle school team, but we can field enough players for 2 high school teams, then we will add a high school team and Uplift Wisdom also, to just start building enthusiasm and familiarity with the program. We're going to host 2 skill camps on Saturdays in November. Just get young men coming out and getting your piano to play. And then, of course, we'll continue our training efforts through second semester. So, when I told the kiddos at Uplift Hampton last week, when we announced it at the start of their flag football game, their homecoming game, where they kind of destroyed Uplift Summit. But I said, look, if you guys are going to be excellent around college readiness, then you also have to have an excellent coach to build the program. And so I'm really proud to share that joining Team Uplift is Brandon Carr, who you are a longtime Cowboys fan. Might know Brandon. He was in the NFL for 13 years as a cornerback. He started his career at the Kansas City Chiefs, then went to the Cowboys, went to the Ravens briefly during the pandemic, and came home to the Cowboys and then retired. Brandon is equally known for his work in the community wants to play flag football, they need to be on a co-ed team, which most of our female scholars don't want to do. So we're also excited about gender equity and athletics. So I'm happy to pause there and share, answer any other questions. But right now, we're just in the heart of messaging internally and externally.
I think I have two questions. So the first question, that's awesome. That was the question, but that's really cool. You can see that. As far as other like peripheral programs, so obviously the Wisdom Park camping has a band program. I don't think it's as robust as like a marching program.
Yeah.
What are the other programs that are being looked at, and how are they being resourced or staffed?
Sure. So as part of our fundraising for the athletic complex, we need to do what we call the supplemental aspects, like the whole kind of school experience around games. So Uplift Wisdom already has a drum line. They actually, were formed at Uplift Hampton because the campus is 7 minutes apart from each other. Uplift Hampton wants to have a band, so this will be their opportunity to use some of those philanthropic resources to create a band program. You cannot go from 0 band to marching band, so it's just going to take a minute. It was really special, I thought personally. Last Thursday at the game, all 3 divisions cheer teams were on the field at the same time, primary, middle, and high, and each took turns performing. So they have that, but again, we'll see the next kind of level up, and then Wisdom has the Warrior Act, which is their dance team. And so again, between the 2 campuses, we have lots of aspects to get started, but we'll use our philanthropic money to continue to advance, because to me, this is again another way of giving more kids opportunity to be a part of their overall school,
Yeah. I think that leads to my second, I don't know if it's a question, but a thought is, we've heard about these things in different conversations, so there's different pieces of the whole puzzle that is happening with this field. And it all started with obviously the building of the field. I don't feel like we have a really clear understanding of all the different facets and how this, like you said earlier, how this turns into, a proving ground for what may come later on. So as we think about long term, if this is something that Uplift decides to institute, across the network, I don't feel like I have a really good understanding of what the total cost of all of these things, so the residual programs, the hiring of these coaches, and I know that y'all shared that with the increase in enrollment, the projected increase in enrollment, that many of these will over time, cost will be incurred. But I think as we think about it as a package,
yes.
and I would rather understand what the projected costs are and what the projected outcomes are on the front end, rather than in kind of like seeing the whole pie, rather than on the back end saying, okay, now we've got this proof of concept. Here's the whole pie, and here's how we're going to do it across the network. So I think it gives us a good. I'd love to see a benchmark, how we benchmark against this, and as it rolls out, how is it successful, knowing what the goals are from the front.
Sure. So we built a financial model around this, so we don't expect to jump to the additional number of scholars in year 1 that makes this self-sustaining. We gave ourselves 3 years in order to do that. And then we have cost model out by year also. The vast majority of the costs happen in year 1 because of the several buildings where the costs are. But we do have an overall presentation deck that we use with donors that lays out the entire case and all the components of it. And it's really easy to share that around with the board, and that way it shows the story and also what the
Let me say, I was at Hampton for a teacher appreciation, so I saw it, that like the day before that we had the event, the private ceremony or whatever, and it just looks terrific. It's the real deal. It's very fun and really beautiful.
So, good job.
It is beautiful, and the
strategy and
Yep, so I'm the managing director of academic strategy, so I oversee several programs and projects here at Uplift. I work closely with Jonathan and Priscilla and Dr. Washington on academics. And then I work very closely with our multilingual programs team that serves our students who are learning English as a second, third, maybe fourth language. I've got two of my teammates here today. Kristen is the team's director, Kinsey is the manager on the team, who may chime in. So every fall, I get to meet with the executive committee and provide you with a report on our progress from the previous year. So that's what I'm here to do today. I have a lot on my slides, a lot of content. I am not going to go through it line by line. I'm going to hit the high points and then make some time for y'all's questions or wondering whatever you might be most interested in talking about. So when children join the network, whether they are joining us as pre-K or kindergartners or later in their pre-K-12 education career, we identify them as emerging bilingual students through a combination of parent input and testing results. And then we serve those children via either an English as a second language program or our brand new dually launched dual language program. When I met with you a year ago, I told you the bet I was placing was on dual language, and that's where we were going to put all our effort for the year. I'm really proud of the team for the work that they have done on that. When we are serving children, whether in an English as a second language model or with dual language, we have tremendous head count. 36% of our students at Uplift this past year were emerging bilingual students, and our newcomer population, meaning our students who have been in the United States for 3 years or fewer, doubled last year. That is a exponential curve that we are trying to get ahead of, and I want that to be one of your takeaways from today, that that's something we're going to have to continue to work really hard to support. Last school year, our emerging bilingual students showed academic progress on the speaking component of the language acquisition assessment that they take every year. They showed progress on STAR Math and on most of our EOC exams, those graduation required exams. In terms of our effort last year, we spent the bulk of it on getting dual language planned so that it could launch this year on August 12th, whatever the first day of school was. We added staff to support that exponentially increasing group of newcomers, and we increased our focus on that small group instruction. Earlier, Jonathan spoke about how small group instruction is one of the most powerful tools a teacher can have. That is definitely true for our emerging bilingual students, so we put a lot of intentional effort into that. Y'all know that we are super proud of our secondary results here at Uplift. Our students graduate with really strong bilingual and biliteracy skills, and our emerging bilingual kids are definitely included in that pride. My aim with our multilingual programs team is to get them to that place of biliteracy, bilingualism sooner than we currently do. So that's the story you're going to see today with the academic data. Let's see. I have like a glossary here, like a flow chart that if you're interested in looking at it later, it just tells you all the steps that we use to identify emerging bilingual students. I do want to pause here to talk a little bit about the 3 different models of instruction that you might see. If you visit an Uplift school and you walk into a classroom, I want to help you understand what you might be seeing. Before this school year, you only would have seen the first classroom. You only would have seen our Uplift teachers teaching in English, trying to get our students to mastery of English language, and you almost always would have seen our scholars, including our emerging bilingual scholars, sitting for the STAR and EOC in English. That's an ESL program. This school year, if you walk into our schools, you might see the middle column, dual language, or you may even see this third column. The middle column, dual language, you'll see that today in pre-K and kinder at 5 of our primary schools. That will eventually blow up to 5th grade, and you will see teachers teaching in Spanish and English. The goal of dual language is not just mastery of English. It is mastery of English and, at Uplift, Spanish, right? You're trying to take both of those assets together so that they have those to move forward in their education. And then finally, this last column, like I said, we are trying to get ahead of the needs of our newcomers. So we are actually piloting just at Williams High School in 9th and 10th grade. You'll see classrooms where we only have newcomers in those classrooms. So you'll see 9th and 10th graders, all of whom have only been in the country for 3 years or fewer, working on their English 1, English C content with other newcomers. As you might imagine, that is incredibly challenging work for our children. We have created a new ESL teacher. It is the first ESL teacher role in the network. It is actually a teacher of record who is leading that instruction. And you will, like there's a TA in there, you'll hear plenty of Spanish supplementing along the way. So just to kind of give you a mental picture in your head of what you might see when you walk into our schools. This is just literally how our head count is distributed for emerging bilinguals. The only thing to call out here is that we get a lot of new scholars in the middle school years that are emerging bilinguals, that is challenging. They do not have the benefit of our great primary program. Sorry.
Why is that?
So we get lots of new students at Uplift in like 6th and 9th grade, right? And if we are getting them from Dallas ISD, from Fort Worth ISD, from Irving ISD, there's a high likelihood that they have already been identified as emerging bilinguals and have potentially not gotten the supports that they need to excel that program, right? So then they're here with us and they're starting in middle school. Am I answering your question?
Our two biggest attrition points are 5th grade going into 6th grade and 8th grade going into 9th grade. So that's where we have the largest number of new students to Uplift. And when a third of your kids qualify as multilingual learners, that just plays out in the inflow of new scholars that we have, who then we're trying to assess and make sure that we provide appropriate services. It's definitely a challenge when we have fall off of our primaries in our middle schools.
Correct. I'm so bummed that this isn't translating. I wish just one more opportunity for you to see this exponential growth that I've got with my newcomer count. Last year, I think we ended the school year at 305 newcomer students. We are already, like as of last week when we built this deck, we're already at 370 newcomer students. So the number is just going to keep climbing. We're really fortunate that it's often like word of mouth. Like Uplift Triumph, Uplift Williams is known as a great home for newcomers in the Metroplex, which is awesome. But we just need to be prepared for them. And you can see that when we get newcomers, they also tend to land in those middle school years. Last slide that I'm going to spend a lot of time on, and then I'll get a little bit speedier. So our emerging bilingual students take a language acquisition assessment every year that measures the 4 domains of language: listening, reading, speaking, and writing. So 70% of our kids from our assessment in the spring are either progressing or maintaining in all 4 of those language domains, that's good. If you've been on the executive committee for a few years, you know how much we've struggled with speaking and listening coming out of mask wearing during the pandemic. That was really a challenge for our kiddos. And we are making significant progress in speaking, which is good. Telepass listening is starting to stagnate, and I think that's something my team and I need to keep an eye on, because you don't usually see receptive language stagnate in that way. We have big chunks here that are maintaining. I mean, yes, ideally I would like to see far more green than in this gray maintaining. But what I actually care about here is cutting this regression. Regression can be a normal part of language acquisition, just like maintenance can be. If you've ever learned a second language or visited a foreign country, like, you know that it can ebb and flow. But something is not quite right if we are seeing 30% of our kids that are regressing. I mentioned earlier that we are doubling down on our efforts with small group instruction. I think that's the play we have to make now. Dr. Washington and I have been fortunate to work with these teams for 4 or 5 years, and we've gotten our tier 1, like our basic instructional practices, in a pretty good place for our emerging bilinguals. Like, our teachers now fully understand that that is part of their day-to-day obligation, which is great. think we're gonna have to get more intentional about small group intervention in order to cut the blue regression by a significant amount and also cut the gray maintain. The next few slides, I've got some historical STAR and EOC data. The story here is that our emerging bilingual kids are making progress on STAR math, which is great. They're doing quite a nice job on their EOCs, their graduation required exams. You see them easily beating the state EB average on everything but Algebra 1, and getting closer and closer to that Uplift mark. And then y'all know, again, our 11th and 12th grade results here are pretty phenomenal. 75% of our emerging bilingual students are passing between 1 and 4 DP assessments. I didn't even include the kids that are passing 5, 6, and 7 assessments on this slide. When our students get to sit down and show like their full ability in their native language, Spanish, along with all their English language acquisition from 12 years of their educational career, like they dominate. They do great. Same thing when it comes to our college readiness. They hold pace with their non-emerging bilingual peers. That's awesome. I just need to get them to this point a little bit sooner than they are. This is what I told you a year ago I was going to work on, so I want to report back on that. I'm pretty proud of our staff retention that we've got, and as I have mentioned, we have launched that new language program at 5 of our schools in preschool and kindergarten. It's pretty special to walk into a classroom and hear Spanish. Just hear kids flourishing in a way that we would not have been able to do a year ago, which is really special. I mentioned we've got that role created. We created that role about a year ago to identify newcomer trends and to try to get on top of that. A result of that is the Williams High School English 1, English 2 instruction that we're able to do. We've gotten our compliance in a really, really good spot. We're getting our, essentially like, if a kid is not coded correctly, we don't get any funding for that kid. Last year, we had 11 of those cases in the whole network across the whole year. It's hard for me to like explain to you what an incredible improvement that is in compliance, but it is significant. And I know like if we can get to that place where compliance is so easy, that gives us so much more space for instruction, which is exciting. Here's what I'm telling you I'm gonna do this year. I'm gonna keep up with that dual language program. Next year when you're here, we're gonna talk about how it's going in first grade. Right now, I've got all those teacher positions filled, and 96% of those seats are filled. That's been exciting. That's been a lot of collaboration with Amanda Martin and her team. The state does not make it easy for a charter to have a dual language program. And I'm grateful to Amanda Martin and Nelson for their advocacy on that. I'm going to be excited a year from now to tell you how those Williams High School newcomers are doing with that English 1, English 2 pilot. And I'm going to come back and tell you, okay, we doubled down on small group intervention, small group instruction. Here's what we got out of it. So, what's interesting? What can I answer for you? What do you want to know more about?
Do you know how our approaches compare and contrast with peer ISDs?
Yeah. Yeah. So, our peer ISDs largely moved away from English as a second language shortly before the pandemic. Most of our peer ISDs are actually sitting between English as a second language and new language with a service model called bilingual, where the goal is still mastery of the English language. I think that can lead to great state assessment results. I don't think it is like an authentic reflection of like a commitment to an IB education, which is what new language provides for us. There are competitors that offer dual language, but it is much harder to plan for and staff for, and so you don't see it quite as frequently. As far as newcomers, what is traditional in an ISD is you have an entirely separate building called a newcomer center, where for the first 1 or 2 years, the newcomers go to that school. 5 or 6 years from now, we probably need to get serious about that conversation. But right now, I want to make sure that we are integrating newcomers into our community and writing what's best for them, like in our existing schools, if that makes sense.
And, because I'm probably slow catching up, can you say a little bit more about the difference between bilingual and dual language?
Sure. Actually, Kristen, would you like to jump in on that?
Sure, yeah, so, one of the main areas, I would say like in a bilingual education, your actual mastery is Spanish, whereas dual language program, we have a language allocation plan that builds right now, pre-K is a 90-10 model, so 90% of that, their day is in Spanish, 10% is in English. Every year that increases by 10%, so we're having really intentional English language development block that again is increasing so that they are building bilingualism, biliteracy. I would say this is now the promoted bilingual model in the state, and I would say nationwide, really. It also offers a one-way and a two-way program. Right now, we're running a one-way program due to the number of emerging bilinguals we have in the network and meeting their needs. A two-way program would be my daughter, who only speaks English, to go and be in that classroom, which is such a wonderful environment that we hope to grow into and have space to do that as well.
And Dallas actually has a couple of those, like every Montessori's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, that's super.
Extremely exciting.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, so just maybe help me understand that growth line, if you will, the students who will require these services, 36% right now of Uplift.
I'm sorry, there's like it's hard to hear on this side, I apologize.
36% of Uplift education, like across the network, 36% fall into this category. So what will that look like in a couple of years?
It's increased by like 4 to 5 percentage points per year over the last 3 or 4 years. It's 3 to 4 years from now, I think we will be majority emerging bilinguals. Unless there are like nationwide immigration, something like that, right? But I do not see any reason why that trend line would stop. I think another interesting data point, a year ago, we had 43 languages spoken by our students across the network. Today, we have 68 languages spoken across the network. I was reading through the list on Friday afternoon, like I'm a pretty educated person. I just had to constantly keep looking up these different languages, right? Which is an incredible asset and really does play nicely with International Baccalaureate. And that's one of the reasons why for so long we have held on to English as a second language. I don't have the resources to provide instruction in 68 languages, but we gotta prepare for those
Just
things.
maybe the percentage, like, in the near term, you think would be in dual language and what it's headed to, the numbers would be sorry.
That's a great question. Right now we have 400 pre-K kindergartners. So next year that should go up to about 600. I'm not doing the percentages in my head. You'll probably see roughly a 50% increase in that number for the next couple of years.
Is that consistent with the competitor experience? Is that the uptick in percentages of diverse speakers, different languages, is that?
Oh, that's a
are we
great
over
question.
Are we over indexing compared to our competitors?
My gut tells me yes, because we provide support in West Dallas and in North Arlington. And those tend to be like focus areas for newcomers in the Metroplex, and we happen to be situated in both of those neighborhoods.
But my guess is every district is experiencing, the newcomers are going to come up.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Right, so I think if everybody's up, because in West Dallas, we've always had strong word of mouth for our schools, which is just historically how our schools have built. It's not surprising to me that we could be over-indexing here, as again, was just
is that a good thing that's like turns into a marketing effort? You know, but that also needs more resources? Or is that something that, you know, is just kind of by chance, right? So I don't know if that's.
We are definitely not explicitly marketing, and I would say the same thing happens with our special education population, where families absolutely share when they're having a positive experience and recruit more families and children in that facilities into our schools, and with our law into our special education numbers sometimes be slightly higher than a traditional ISD staff.
The only other thing I want to note is that, like, from the state's perspective, from TDA's perspective, there is no additional funding, support, whatever, for the newcomers by and large. I think that's something to keep in mind. Question?
I just want to make sure I truly understand what you do. So you're a student in 12 and you're learning structured language and you're reading literature in that language. I assume that there are parallels with the students who are learning both languages, learning structure, literature, etc.
Yes. The younger a child is, the more time instruction is in their native language.
Right, I'm sure.
And as they grow up, the percentage balances out between the two. So I think one thing that's interesting to think about with our dual language program is that when our scholars reach 3rd, 4th, 5th grade and beyond, they could take STAR in Spanish or in English. A committee will decide for each student where they are more likely to have success. Whereas that would not be the case in an English as a second language program. We would just be pushing for English.
I think just the curriculum piece, so such as we're implementing Amplify, right, as a new curriculum in primary schools, is the same thing for dual language, so they are seeing that in the Spanish language. So that mirrors the, I would say, the structure, same for math, right, we're using Eureka Spanish for math instruction, so that structure within the curriculum is different.
So you mentioned earlier this, that other districts are going to, you know, standalone schools or, you know, kind of like different school structures within maybe an existing building. This is what we asking, but is, so does that
Especially
shift?
for newcomers. I just want to separate out
Yeah.
the for newcomers, yes.
But except for the newcomers, is that, and with the shifting percentages, the percentages going up, does that change your long-term needs, for resources? You know, is it more expensive to run these programs? What would we be looking at, potentially facilities, you know, in addition to what we have today? And, like, how are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I would say, while I agree with Stephanie that the numbers might warrant someone thinking about a separate center, even major disadvantage versus traditional ICs, in that we do not have school buses. So the traditional ICs can transport these kids all around, but as soon as we go to a centralized center, I now, even if I have one in Tarrant County and one in Dallas County, I might be moving one child from Brandover with one child from West Dallas. The cost of transportation to me makes essential pretty prohibitive. Nothing is off the table for me, but it's not a immediate strategy. I think we would have to do more classrooms inside the building, that when we can have more of them geographically spread out, so it was easier for families to get to, like, through nearby schools, really easily to get to a couple of dedicated classrooms versus a huge session.
How do kids who are in, speak only English, are in the classroom when they speak only English? How do kids in ESL and the dual language programs benchmark against them at important grade levels on acquisition for reading and writing?
So I think this is the information you're looking for, which is how do our emerging bilingual students who in previous years are performing compared to their English-only speaking peers. Is that right? Yeah. So it depends on the content area, whether it's math or literacy or biology, US history, and depends on the grade level. What we typically see is starting in that third grade year, that first year taking tests, maybe they're like 10 percentage points on average behind your English-only speaking peers. By the time I get to fifth grade, we're usually cutting that to about 5 percentage points. Sixth grade's different because I've got a bunch of new kids, so my gap might get bigger, then it starts to close again. And then, again, I will point to when our students are taking DP assessments, or diploma program assessments for international baccalaureate, like, they do great. So by the time we get them to that point, they're fully ready for college and career. I just need to tap into them.
I'm just curious because I was thinking that, you know, where I came from, when my daughter was going to school, to have a dual language program was a thing that you wanted.
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
You know, and if you put kids, if you get kids of that nature into a dual language program, it's got to raise all adults.
Yep.
So it's not that.
Yeah, I mean, it's 8 weeks in, it's early days, but I am hopeful that we will see that promising attitude. I expect we will. Thanks.
Leslie?
Okay.
So one small bit of almost just housekeeping for us today. I need to get official board authorization to sign our new line of credit. This is something that the Finance and Strategy Committee team have been brought up to speed on. We actually started discussions about 6 months ago on this process. The reason that it's just now coming to the broader board for approval is we had an existing line of credit with regions where we had 10 million drawn down. So I've been making sure that we pay that down. We closed that line of credit out. We've had a number of different legal reviews on all of the terms and conditions, and we are at a place where we're ready to sign the official agreement. And so I need to get official approval. There is this, and Yasmin sent out preemptively the terms of that, and Harold can speak for the broader finance and strategy team in their review of it.
Yeah, as Leslie said, she brought this to the attention of the Finance Committee about 6 months ago as an opportunity to reconsider a long-standing relationship that I think we've probably been taking for granted, given the results of what you see there. You save a significant amount of money. So I think tip my hat to Leslie and her team for identifying the opportunity that could easily have been left alone, and yet here we are capitalizing on something that's going to be much more efficient and beneficial for the organization. So I, on behalf of the Finance Committee, recommend we adopt it.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Yep, so one very quick administrative action item today, and that's the minutes from the board retreat that we reviewed. Read on any questions about minutes.
Second. Sorry.
Got it.
Second.
One or two, I'll do.
Okay, thank you, Julie, Gary, motion.
out here to say goodbye to you all when you step out after your closed session. We are hosting our appreciation event for our 10-year plus employees at Uplift tonight on. So make my way there, but thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Well, as soon as you take through the closed session.
We are now retiring to closed session.
And then she will have to come back on.
Yeah, we're good.
The time is now 5:45, and the board is back in open session. No action or vote has been taken during the closed session. Is there a motion?
I move approval of the recommended bonus as well as the 3% increase in base pay.
Sorry, can you put, I can hear over here.
No, I did not.
No.
I will.
Okay.
I will now adjourn the meeting. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for your great questions and your participation. Ricky and Karen, so noted for our compensation. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Great questions, incredible participation. And if I haven't met with you, I look forward to meeting with you.
Everyone, real quick. Everybody, hold on, sorry, just real quick. I'm sorry, should have done this at the beginning of the meeting or something. This is Gianna Austin, our amazing.
Hey, you guys.
So it's, Gianna Austin's our amazing new deputy chief of people officer. She is Ann Backville, came on maybe four weeks ago now. And we're all super thrilled to have her, super experienced, super talented, and we're all kind of been lucky enough last few weeks to get to know her and are very excited that she's going to bring the team. So that's
And you know what, and while we're making announcements, I've got an invitation by the Dallas History Makers for a celebration of people from the city of Dallas. Our very own Remy Washington will be receiving an award in excellence in education. So, yeah, that's awesome.
But this is more live, I better go.
Thank you.
I see, any cost?